بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال: إن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: إن الجنة لا تزخرف لرمضان من رأس الحول إلى حول قابل. So Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be well pleased with both father and son, said, paradise is decorated from year to year, um, in preparation for the advent of Ramadan. So just like how here in America, for example, we see Christmas, they have all these Christmas things setting up well in advance. And in Eid, people are doing similar things. Here in Jannah, there's something physically happening. So the key thing we have to understand is that um, the spiritual is deeper than the physical, right? Everything spiritual is more meaningful and more significant than the physical. That said, it's often hard to grasp things that are spiritual. And it's nice to understand, it's nice to remember that every single spiritual thing has a physical reality. Has a physical reality. When you say bad words, has a physical reality. When you make wudu, has a physical reality. When you do istighfar, has a physical reality. And so this hadith is reminding us or telling us of a physical reality, just like now we are winding up and rolling up our sleeves for Ramadan and getting ready for Ramadan. Similarly, Jannah is getting ready for this. The reward is already getting made. When the first day of Ramadan, and it says, فإذا كان أول يوم من رمضان هبت ريح تحت العرش من ورق الجنة على الحور العين. Um, when the first day of Ramadan comes, a wind blows from beneath the heavenly throne, blowing some of the leaves of paradise upon the heavenly maidens, al-Hur al-Ain. They will say, My Lord, grant us husbands from amongst your servants who will be the coolness of our eyes. Phrase in Arabic, تقر بهم أعيننا, is from the word, it has two possible roots. قرار العين, which is where the eye rests, وقرة العين, which is the coolness of your eye. So slightly different meanings, both meaning one's absolute joy. So if you imagine something that you really, really, really like, and that is the best thing in the world to you, right? Then what do you look at besides it? You look at that thing in your eye, just right. Your eye does qarar. Your eye stays there, right? It fills your eye. That's a phrase we use, right? And so that's called qarar al-ain, right? Similarly, qurrat al-ain is the coolness of my eye, which is a concept for the Arabs, which they say that when you are angry, you cry. When you're sad, you cry hot tears, and when you are happy, if you cry out of happiness, out of extreme happiness, you cry cool tears. And so the idea that you would see something you're so unbelievably happy with it's just like you can't possibly imagine anything being better, and then you'll cry out of happiness. It says, grant us husbands from amongst your servants who will be the coolness of our eyes, and we be the coolness of their eyes. Now, as I mentioned last week, um, uh, as we mentioned last week, Imam Bayhaqi mentioned this in Shu'ab al-Iman. Shu'ab al-Iman by Imam Bayhaqi is not a collection of Sahih Hadith. It's a collection of Imani Hadith. Right? And we've mentioned many, many times that the ulama, Imam Ahmad, Abdul Rahman ibn Mahdi, the ulama in general, the style that they use is when it comes to hadith to do with halal and haram, they're strict about hadith being sahih or da'if, right? Whereas when it comes to general recommendation like this, we already know in the Quran about the Hurra'in. We already know about the merits of Ramadan. So this just backs up the same idea. It's already supported in this general sense. And so perhaps there's a weak narrator in the chain. Perhaps there's, debate whether or not is it are they the words of the Prophet ﷺ or the words of somebody else. It's not a big deal when it comes to weak hadiths. But generally speaking, if you see a hadith that's only found in a book like this, right? The Shu'ab al-Iman, the branches of faith by Imam Bayhaqi. The fact that it's only there, it's not in any of the other six books, you could probably assume that it's going to be weak. Hadith number 12. عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تسحروا فإن في السحور أو السحور بركة رواه الشيخان. Um, He says, Anas ibn Malik reports that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, partake in the pre-dawn meal, right? Suhoor. Suhoor with a dhamma is the process of having breakfast, right? Like futur, that's also, so suhoor, the process of having a breakfast before dawn. Futur, the process of having breakfast in the morning. Wudu, the process of making wudu. These are julus, right? The process of sitting. So fa'ul is used for a process, as opposed to fa'ul is used for the thing that you use for that process. Okay, so wudu with a fatha is the thing that you use to make wudu, either wudu, water. Waqud is fuel with a fatha. Waqud, fuel. Fatur is breakfast. Sahur is the food that you eat in the morning, right? Sabuh, the milk that you drink in the morning. So it's a substance, right? It's a thing that you use for something. And similarly, Ghafoor, when you say Allah is Ghafoor, He is the substance that you use for forgiveness. He is He is forgiveness material itself. Right? Sabur, he is patient forgiveness. He is patient material itself. Um, and it's in Bukhari Muslim. وعن عمرو عن عمرو بن العاص رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فصل ما بين صيامنا وصيام أهل الكتاب أكلة السحر. So Abdullah ibn Amr, Amr ibn As, he said, the Messenger of Allah said, the difference between our fasts and the fasts of the Jews and the Christians is the pre-dawn meal. So that's a key thing that we should do. And so it's something that we should do. Some people, they find it very difficult to eat in the morning. They feel like sick if they do that. And so, just having some water is enough. Right? You've to fulfill fulfill the task. And generally speaking, one should try one's best to have a light iftar and a heavy sahur, right? Heavy sahur so that you have the energy for the day, right? So it's a good example of taking from the dunya for your akhirah, right? You're supposed to do that. You're supposed to give your nafs what it needs in order to survive that day, etc. Um, and so generally speaking, it's not a good idea to have starch at that time because starch burns up quickly. So you have, I don't know, if you have cereal, for example, at that time, or you have something like that, that's not a good idea. Rather, we should have things like proteins and fats at that time so that it'll last throughout the day. Um, Similarly, if you go to sleep, so you wake up and have some sugar, it's not a very clever thing to do because um, the sugar kicks into your blood and then it keeps you awake if you're going to sleep after Fajr, like most people during Ramadan, then it's not going to be very good for you. Whereas breaking your fast on sugar is different. I mean, obviously, depending, people have diabetes or something. Okay. Just a little point here. He said, mentions the Sheikh mentioned just on the commentary says balance in the sacred law. He said prophetic guidance on hastening to break the fast and delaying pre-dawn meal. So this is a this demarcate between the night of license and the day of stricture. Right. So this is a very, very important thing. Right. Is that we are people of balance. We do not worship strictness, nor do we worship leniency, but rather we worship Allah. So there's a big difference. Um, and so um, it's and there's a taking the dunya for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is it's a kind of quite a complex and subtle thing. So imagine, for example, somebody who naturally likes to be by themselves and they naturally like to be quiet and they naturally like to focus on worship. But then Allah asks them, for example, to interact with people. Find it very difficult. Allah asks them to do teamwork. They're really independent. They don't like teamwork. Um, Allah wants them to, I don't know, do something else. It's a whole different kind of paradigm. Just like Hajj, you go on Hajj, like oh, like Hajj is a very quote unquote unfocused worship in the sense that you're kind of moving from here to there. It's very, very different to doing or saying Quran or praying. And so it's very, very different. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants to give us a complete workout, right? In our worship. Is you take away the dunya for the sake of Allah and you give yourself for the dunya for the sake of Allah. And you do this for the sake of Allah and you do that for the sake of Allah so that we have this whole holistic, perfect paradigm. Right? And we mentioned last week as well, the whole this comes part and parcel into the whole thing about marriage, etc. Some of the Sahaba in their minds, they had this monastic idea, right? Which is that it's good to make your life difficult for yourself, right? Which there is truth in that, right? Making your life hard for you for the ease of other people, or making yourself things difficult for you in order to worship Allah is a good thing, right? But that doesn't mean we seek difficulty. So they had this idea of seeking difficulty. There's something that exists in kind of medieval Christianity. And so, some of the Sahaba they said, "Oh, we're never gonna sleep. We're just gonna pray all night, or we're always gonna fast every single day, and we're never gonna get married, right?" And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man raghiba an sunnati falaysa minni." Whoever turns away from my example of balance, of taking from the dunya that you need, and on all its different levels is very important. Sleep is another one, right? Oh, I want to pray tahajjud. I want to, oh, this Qiyam al-Layl tonight. Do you have work tomorrow yet? So are you going to be able to pray? Are you going to be able to work? Say no. You go to sleep. So yeah, but I want to do this. I want to do this. I'm missing out. You're not missing out. As long as you are taking from the dunya for the sake of Allah, as long as you're eating for the sake of Allah, as long as you're sleeping for the sake of Allah, as long as you're taking a break, you're very, very stressed, right? You're very, very stressed and you need to go and do something else. All of these things are, this is all ibadah. The problem is, sometimes the nafs takes over by taking too much, right? And sometimes the nafs takes over by making us think that we shouldn't do it. And then the shaitan comes in and kind of comes in between. So we have to say, what you do is you step outside yourself. You say, imagine you are not you. What would you advise somebody like yourself to take of the dunya? What would you think? Like how much food, how much sleep? Look at the situation. Imagine if you're advising from the outside. So you're not, it's impartial advice. You know, that's what you should do. That's the good thing. So yeah, I can see you're really, really tired. You should sleep. You shouldn't pray Tarawih. I can see that you are really, really stressed, right? You should go and do this right now. Go on, go and do something silly, right? I can see that you're really, really hungry. I see that you need to eat food, right? Say eat this, but don't eat this, right? Um, inshallah. Does that make sense, inshallah, to everybody? And then this is also part and parcel of, so the part and parcel of this is being married and having a functional marriage. So many people are either not married or they don't have a functional marriage. And so there are very important emotional or very important physical things that aren't happening. And they break this system because people need certain things and they don't have those certain things, other haram things happen, right? And so this is part and parcel of that is that people need to be married and people need to also work on their marriages to make sure their marriages work in an Islamic way and they're functioning. But people have all sorts of issues, and then what happens is there's now a whole stress on various aspects of their life, and then the balance isn't there, right? And that's not it shouldn't be like that. Okay. Hadith 14. عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا أفطر قال ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله. رواه أبو داود. Um, so Abdullah ibn Umar said, when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would break his fast, he would say, "Thirst has been quenched, the arteries are moist, and the reward will be certain, God willing." Right? This is rated by Abu Dawood, and inshallah, I will share a little video I made last year on this hadith and another hadith, inshallah. So, key thing then, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, don't be a zahid anymore. Don't turn away from the dunya more. I want you to turn to the dunya. Okay, well, did you say Bismillah? Did you make the dua? Did you think about Allah? Right? So there's a test that we have when we don't have the dunya, when we're poor, when we're hungry, when we're in pain, when we are being abused, when whatever it is. There's a test that's there. But there's a bigger test when you have the dunya, when you are not being abused, when you are healthy, when you are wealthy, when you are out of debt, when you do have free time. And so this the test from Maghrib to Fajr is actually way bigger than the test from Fajr. From the test from Maghrib to Fajr is way bigger than the test from Fajr to Maghrib. Just like our test, we are being tested right now. We have the luxury of electricity and the luxury of health and the luxury of time, right? Perhaps, I don't know which Mustafa this is. This is Mustafa Hassan, maybe another Mustafa, but maybe perhaps one of us here is working while this class is happening, right? But most of us, we do not work 7 days a week, right? We have a luxury where we live a life, we have so much money that we don't actually have to work every day of the week, right? Or perhaps people work for us. We have the luxury, for example, that we didn't have to work as children, right? These are all luxuries. And so the luxury of a ni'mah, the test of a ni'mah, is way more than the test of a niqmah, right? The test of having free time and having health and wealth and food and stuff like that is way bigger than, than the test of fasting. The test of fasting is much more overt. Like we know what's going on. I have to be patient and not eat and not drink and not do this, not do this. Okay, I know what I'm doing. It's the first half of that exam paper where you know these are standard questions, you know what the answer question is. The second question is now how am I gonna now that I have food, how's my speech? How's my time management? How's this? How's that? All these different things. It's it's a very, very important thing to understand. And then some people try and avoid that, like, oh, I really want to, like the high, for example, of being on fasting, right? So when you're fasting, there's a spiritual high and there's also a physical high, right? Because the fact you don't have food and you feel a certain way and you want that to continue. And it gets messed up when you interact with people, when you eat food, when you have to do certain things. And so you actually, no, it's again, just like we mentioned the full workout, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be with Him outside without the dunya and in the dunya, right? And so this test is very hard, right? This test is very hard. I'd like to check this one. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال الرسول. So key thing to remember, the dunya is a mentality and a mindset. and a focus. It is not a place or an activity. So somebody who is sleeping, somebody who is eating the eighth hamburger is not necessarily somebody who is a dunyawi person, right? Somebody who is praying is not somebody who is an ukhrawi, a person of the next what life, but rather it's a mentality, right? Somebody who goes to Taraweeh because that's what we do in my country, right? This person, the person of the is a dunya because they're following the Ahl Rasum, the people they just follow what people do. This is how things function. So this is what we do. I suppose somebody who goes to sleep instead of praying Taraweeh for the sake of Allah, and they do it, they're saying, I actually genuinely need to rest right now. I can't pray Taraweeh tonight, whatever it is. Then this person is a person of the Akhirah. Especially if they're religious, and especially if their religious friends know, because they're making themselves look irreligious, right? So it's also a big stamp on the nafs. Another good example of that is if you're in your masjid, if they pray straight away after iftar, right? So they give you 1 minute, and so you're the religious person, but you're actually genuinely hungry. And so if you're genuinely hungry, you should eat a bit more. So what if the iqamah goes? Yeah, you should still eat. So everybody comes to the masjid and they see the whole jama'ah praying, and you're there with your shaykhy beard and you're eating pizza, and they're looking at you like, what happened? Right? And in reality, you're doing what is sunnah. You're doing what is right. Like you should not pray while you are very hungry. You shouldn't do that. So if you came in late or you just need to eat more than everybody else, or you feel you can't pray immediately, you need to wait 30 seconds, 40 seconds. Everyone else got up to pray, but you're not, right? Everyone else feels pressured by the onlookers to pray, and you say, no, I'm doing what the Prophet ﷺ told me to do. So you're in the akhirah, and they're in the dunya. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الله عز وجل أحب عبادي إلي أعجلوهم فطرا رواه الترمذي. So Abu Hurairah narrated the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the most beloved of my servants to me are the ones who hasten to break the fast the most. So that word should be there, the most. أعجلوهم, the ones who hasten the most. You can say either the hastiest of them to break the fast or those who hasten to break the fast the most. So again, now here's the test. Are you eating this date because you want to eat the date, or are you eating the date because Allah wants you to eat the date? Are you drinking the water because you're really thirsty and you want to remove the pain of thirst, or are you drinking? So this is a key test. At that point, you've worked on a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You've worked on a particular way of dealing with things, and it's like two kids, for example, two kids who couldn't share toys. Okay, and you have now developed this relationship where they actually have more fun when they share toys. Okay, and now one of them, it's his turn to take the toy. So when he takes the toy from the other kid, is he taking it in the way they used to be? That, haha, I've got it now and you can't have it? Or is he taking it in the way that he's now enjoying this new quality relationship where they can actually share toys and have more fun? Does that make sense? So this is the same thing. You are now taking the dunya, but not because I want it, because Allah wants me to take it. So it's a totally different thing. So therefore, it's in my mouth and my stomach, but it's not in my heart. As opposed to, and so where's the acid test here? When do you stop eating? So you had a piece of pizza, second piece of pizza, um, a donut. It's like, I mean, can you eat three pieces of pizza plus a donut when you break your fast in one go? Probably, depending how hungry you are. But there's a limit that you ate um, a whole pizza, and like you're almost about to throw up. Like how was that? So how did that reflect that you? How did that reflect the fact that you kept your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It didn't, right? So there are certain physical things we do with our actions that indicate what's happening inside us. The fact that you didn't pray because you were at work and it was awkward tells us that you are more worried about what people think about you than you are about Allah. That's actually what like there's certain measurable things, right? You couldn't give zakat. That means you are too cheap to give zakat. That's what it means. Because it's not that you couldn't do it, because as long if you're obliged to, you're only obliged to do it if you can do it, but you didn't do it, right? You could have gone on Hajj. You had the money. You had the time. You had the time off. You had this. You had that. There were no worldly things. You just didn't go. That, these are indicative of something. So key test for myself, number one, and for all of us here is when you break your fast, you pause. You're with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before the fast, you're with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while you're breaking the fast. And now each bite pulls you in. Each bite pulls you in. Are you going to be with the food, or are you going to be with Allah? Right? And then be careful, you're around religious people and they're watching you. And now you're going to eat less because, oh, they're watching me. Right? And they're going to judge me on how religious I am. And I can't bear being judged less religious than they are. Right? So all of these things, there's a huge test that's happening right now. It's not a joke. Right? There's a test of halal and haram, like am I going to show off to people, which is haram, right? And then there's a test of did I really learn today's lesson or not? Of can I take the dunya out of my heart? Checking your phone, right? Same kind of thing. And you're going to go check your phone. You're going to check this, check this, check this, right? And so the default then is again, step out of yourself. You are not you. How much would you advise somebody who is in your situation, your exact situation, to eat? You tell them to eat that much. So now you tell that to yourself. Okay, this, right? Altruism. There's only three pieces of pizza and there's four people. Obviously, then altruism would dictate that you want other people to do it, and not just that you want somebody else to eat it, but you want, like, you don't want them to leave it. Like you would feel happy if the other people ate it, right? And so there's a lot of things happening when you're breaking the fast. A lot of things are happening, way bigger than everything else that's happening. And then obviously that's going to be reflected in the prayer. And then your ability to do ibadah and your ability to do all sorts of things. Right? And so may Allah give us tawfiq. وعن سلمان بن عامر الضبي رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا أفطر أحدكم فليفطر على تمر فإنه بركة فإن لم يجد فليفطر على ماء فإنه طهور رواه أحمد والترمذي وأبو داود وابن ماجه. So Salman ibn Amr al-Dabbi narrated the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when one of you breaks his fast, let him break his fast with a date. This is not correct. So with dates. In Arabic, tamra is a date. Tamr is dates. Right? Moza, a banana. Mose, means bananas, but the material banana. Like you mix some mixed banana into something. Right? That's called mose. Dajaj means chicken meat or chickens. Dajajah, one chicken. Right? So that's why we get the three. Right? فَلْيُفْطِرْ عَلَى تَمْرَ. Right? So ala tamrin meaning dates, meaning three. Right? The minimum when you say dates in Arabic, the minimum is three. فإنه because then break his fast on dates for is a blessing. If you do not have one, then on something then on water or the like, right? So again, you have no health issues, and you're totally fine for you to have dates, but you just don't like dates, right? And so, no, you should do that. Which condiment is mentioned in the Quran? Honey or jam? It's like honey. Okay, then eat honey. Why? Obviously, it's better than jam, isn't it? I'm not saying it's haram to have jam, but like when you say zuhud, like I've learnt zuhud. I've learnt to detach my heart from Allah, from anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when I'm breaking my fast. Break your fast on anything you like, but at least break your fast in the beginning with dates, right? Because not following the sunnah means it's not important to me. Again, some people have health issues, they can't have dates or something else. Um, but we should following the sunnah is a measurement of where our hearts are. The Prophet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet it says, قُلْ إِن كُنتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, say, if you love me, Allah, say, if you say, إِن كُنتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ, so if you love Allah, فَاتَّبِعُونِي, then diligently follow me. That's what it means. فَاتَّبِعُونِي, not فَاتَّبِعُونِي. فَاتَّبِعُونِي. If you love Allah, then diligently follow him. What does it mean? It means you get the Prophet ﷺ and what you know of the Prophet ﷺ and put him in your situation. Your situation. You're at work, you're at college, you're at this, you're at that. What would the Prophet ﷺ do in this situation? That's what it means. Doesn't mean, oh, I have to live in Medina and I have to speak Arabic. Doesn't mean that. People do, there are different scenarios, different things for different scenarios. But are you doing what the Prophet ﷺ would have done in your scenario? If the Prophet ﷺ was a student, if the Prophet ﷺ were a woman, if the Prophet ﷺ were a child, if the Prophet ﷺ were somebody dealing with this situation, how would he deal with it? وعن أنس بن مالك قال كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يفطر قبل أن يصلي على رطبات فإن لم تكن رطبات فتميرات فإن لم تكن تميرات حسوات من ماء رواه الترمذي وأبو داود. So Anas ibn Malik narrated the Prophet ﷺ would break his fast with fresh dates. So these are fresh dates, meaning uncured dates. So dates, when they're on the tree, they are crunchy, right? They are crunchy, and then what happens is somehow whatever that's almost like a crunchy cucumber, right? And they have this very strange kind of taste. Um, they kind of, I wouldn't say acidic, but it's like, I don't know what it is, makes your teeth feel funny. Um, anyway, and then what happens is the sugar starts to change, and then so you'll see there's this crunchiness to it, and then there's brownness to it. So it becomes very, very soft and sugary. Okay, and then you cure dates, right? Like you cure raisins, grapes, and they become raisins. The same thing. So the dates that we see are cured dates, right? They have been dried out. So before that stage, when they are sugary and moist and very sticky, and they will go off like you've left them outside, they just go off like any fruit. That's called rotab. Um, and then he said, if there were no fresh dates, then he would eat a few dry dates. Right? Tumayrat means a few. So the tasghir in Arabic, when you say for example rujail, that means a little man, right? Hassan, Hussein, the little Hassan. It's also for a few, right? Ahlu ghunaim, a people who have a few goats. Not that they have a small goat, but a few goats, right? So here it means a very few. So you could imagine a very few would only be, for it to be few in Arabic, it has to be three. And to be very, it's going to be, just a few dates. So if there were no fresh dates, he would eat dry dates. Right? He would eat just a few. He would eat just a few. Right? Where's the word just a few? From the word tumayrat, not tamarat. Tamarat means dry dates, but tumayrat means just a few dates. Right? And I remember once, um, it's like breaking the fast is quite, complex and like how do you break the fast? You go to the masjid, you break the fast at home, this, that, you've got family, etc. So I remember running to the masjid and like, man, like, like you can break your fast and then run to the masjid and then there was this Hanafi and the Hanafis by default, they don't pray before Maghrib, right? They don't have a prayer before Maghrib. Shafis, we have a two rakats before Maghrib. And And I'm like, man, how do you break your fast and do the two rakats before Maghrib? He says, I know, just like has a very short, he breaks his fast very quickly and then goes. He says he was joking with me. He says, "Hey, I pray the two rakats before Maghrib, and it's even makruh for me, right? Meaning by default, it's makruh in my hand if he's called to pray those two rakats. He prayed it for a particular reason, but the point is like, hey, so the default is if you have kids, you have family, it's a different thing, right? For them, it's important that you sit down and let's say, for example, the kids, I remember my mum, making quite a big deal about suhoor and iftar, and it was something that I remembered. Like I remember having these cakes, I remember having these things. It is important. So if you're going to do it from that point of view, I'm going to stay home and be with the kids, and it's like, yay, we're breaking our fast, and you know, the first week we can have this food, and the second week we can have that food, and the third week we can have that food, and whatever it is, there's other things you can do. But by default, if you're by yourself, all things being equal, then we should just, keep it, and assuming you're not really, really, you don't have a health issue, assuming you're not really, hungry, whatever it is, just break your fast on a few things, go and pray, and then have a real meal after that. But what is wrong though is when people, for example, they break their fast, um, and they break their fast very quickly because they want to pray very quickly because they're thinking about the food. So in their mind, they're thinking very strategically. They're like, I really want to get this whole iftar, and I want to get to the food. And the thing that's stopping the food is the prayer. And the thing that's stopping the prayer is my iftar itself. So I'm going to just do it really quickly. That's wrong, right? I remember I was in Morocco once, and like I basically I gave salams to the right and to the left. I was in a big masjid. It was a huge masjid, and then you look right and look left, and everyone's disappeared immediately because they all want to go and eat real food immediately, which is wrong. So what should happen is you break the adhan comes in, you as soon as you know that it's Maghrib, and obviously Maghrib, the sun setting is not it's based on mathematical um, modeling, which has a lot of assumptions in it, so you should be a bit careful, right? So as soon as you are confident, I know I'm sure that I'm sure that it's Maghrib, it's definitely Maghrib now. Then you break your fast, right? And if you're going to be distracted from Maghrib, you keep eating. Meaning, if you're going to, so the point is we don't want to be thinking about food while breaking Maghrib. So it shouldn't be, okay, have a few dates, have a sip of water, pray Maghrib, and get this whole thing out of the way so we can get to the cake. It shouldn't be like that. It should be that, okay, you eaten just enough? You eaten enough? Okay, can we can we do a proper prayer now? Yeah, we can do a proper prayer now. Same thing. You shouldn't pray when you go to the bathroom. You shouldn't pray when you're getting a call from your son is that he's in ER, he's in, intensive care. And you're like, oh, it's I mean, if you can pray with focus like that, then pray. But if you're waiting right now for a phone call any minute, then just wait 5, 10 minutes to pray because you're not going to be focused, right? So the point of the prayer is focus. عن زيد بن خالد الجهني رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من فطر صائما أو جهز غازيا فله مثل أجره. Um, so this here it says رواه البيهقي في شعب الإيمان. It's not just in Shu'ab, it's also in Abu Dawud and Tirmidhi. So um, okay. So Zayd ibn Khalid reported that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whoever feeds a fasting individual or equips a warrior shall be granted the same reward as them." And so this is a whole idea that whenever you facilitate something for other people, it's a huge you get the reward for that as well, right? And so Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali he mentions that why is it so important to break someone's fast is that people didn't work in Ramadan. So people used to just stop working. in Ramadan. And so you're going to have somebody who is wealthy and he can feed half the city. And he's now the means for everybody to fast, right? Um, and so the concept of iftar for us is more like a social thing, right? And that's not socializing is not really part of Ramadan, but it is, accidentally something important. What does that mean? It means if everybody had strong iman and there were no social issues and no need to do da'wah and everybody was just getting on with their religious life in fine and dandy, then there's no need to socialize in Ramadan. There's no need to do that at all. However, when people have weak iman and they don't come to the masjid anyway, and they don't socialize with Muslims anyway, suddenly socializing becomes an accidental, non-essential kind of tool in Ramadan that's very useful. You have people who are interested in Islam, you invite them to the masjid for iftar. You have relatives that you don't see or there's issues with them or whatever it is, you invite them to your house for iftar. You have what was I going to say? You have there's community people. Youth would never come to the masjid, but now there's pizza, so now we're going to come, right? Um, People don't even know about anything. So suddenly, like it does become quite a big thing. But otherwise, the whole idea about breaking someone else's fast is that they would not be able to fast without you feeding them. Hadith 19 and حفصة رضي الله عنها قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من لم يجمع الصيام قبل الفجر فلا صيام له رواه الترمذي والنسائي وأبو داود والدارمي. This is the kind of first fiqh topic here, but it says it's narrated from Hafsa radiallahu anha that the Prophet ﷺ said, one who does not make the intention to fast before dawn has not fasted, right? And so this is the default, is that you have to intend before Fajr comes in. So somewhere between Maghrib and Fajr of the next day, you have to click in your head that tomorrow I'm going to fast and then not change your mind about it, right? So this gets a bit confusing for some people, but let's think about the scenario of somebody who is sick or somebody who is traveling, okay? You were traveling. You had the right to not fast tomorrow. And so in the morning, it was Ramadan, and you woke up without the intention of fasting. You did not eat, you did not drink, okay? And you went down for breakfast in your hotel buffet, and it wasn't very interesting. You didn't really feel like eating anything. And then you asked for some coffee, and they didn't have coffee. And you asked for some tea, and they didn't have any milk in the tea. And you're like, forget this. This is annoying. And then you get a text message saying that the meeting that's supposed to be at 10 o'clock, that's going to last for 3 hours, is cancelled, and we're going to meet tomorrow or the next day. So you're like, I have nothing to eat. I don't really want to eat, and I don't even need to eat. I'm just going to go back to sleep. So you're like, oh, okay, now I'm going to fast. Can you fast now? Okay, according to the Jumhur, according to the majority of scholars, no, you cannot. Why? Because of the hadith, whoever does not make the intention to fast before dawn has not fasted. Okay. Now, the Hanafis, they say, no, that's not true. The Hanafis, they say, if it's Ramadan, whether you want to fast or not, you're fasting. So you don't have to intend that, right? You don't have to intend that. It's already assumed for you, as opposed to a day that you have to select. It's a sunnah fast, it's a qada fast. Then you're going to have to make this specific intention. And here it mentions about the Hanafi school. I mentioned some different here. So you can read about that there anyway. So the Shafi'is, anyway, they say you have to intend before the fasting day, meaning what was your intention? So like, so now it's Fajr and I get a phone call. "Oh, I didn't intend last night." So, well, did you have the intention to fast today? And they're like, yeah. So that's what I mean, right? So when you broke your fast, last night, were you thinking about fasting tomorrow? So yeah. Okay, and when you woke up for Fajr, were you thinking about fasting tomorrow? So yeah. As opposed to the scenario where you're sick and it's on the cards, like not fasting is on the cards, right? A woman who, for example, stops menstruating just before Fajr, right? Just before Fajr. So she wasn't thinking that she's going to be fasting tomorrow. But then she finishes her period. And so now she's thinking, oh, in her head, now I have to pray Isha because it's still Isha time. I have to pray Isha and I have to have suhoor because I'm fasting today. That's called an niyyah, right? That's called an intention. Now the Malikis, they say a similar thing, but they say yes, you have to intend before the whole month, right? So for them, it's they look at the fast as one action, right? So did you intend before Fajr, eye of the first day? So yeah. So this is one action, which is called fasting 30 days. You do not have to intend for each day. You have to intend for the whole thing. Right? So anyway, we should be careful, try and think of what we're doing, and the practical situation is what I wasn't going to fast tomorrow. Now I am going to fast, and it's already Fajr time. What do I do? The Shafis? No, you can't fast this. You're not. I mean, you have to abstain. If you're obliged to fast, then you have to not eat and drink. But this is not called a fast. You can have to do qada of this regardless. For the Hanafis, as long as it's before basically half of the day, you're fine. Again, this is to do with not a qada, nor is it to do with a sunnah. This is to do with an obligatory fast. For the sunnahs, well, for the Shafi'is, we have another hadith which is totally different, right? For the sunnahs, here we're talking about the fard, right? For the sunnahs, it's a different issue. And in this book, it mentions the Maliki school and mentions the Shafi school. Cardinal principle: only listen to people who are specialized in a school. So I mentioned the Hanafi school, correct? And I mentioned the Maliki school. I mentioned it en passant, like just in passing, as an interesting thing, right? It's not an actual class on Maliki fiqh. So Maliki fiqh is taken from a Maliki. Shafi'i fiqh is taken from a Shafi'i. Hanafi fiqh is taken from a Hanafi. I don't mean a Hanafi, somebody who identifies as a Hanafi. I'm talking about somebody who studied Hanafi fiqh, right? Hanbali fiqh is taken from somebody who studied Hanbali fiqh. If you don't follow a single madhab, then Allah bi'ainak. Allah help you because it's going to be, you're going to find bit by bit here and there that the person talking to you has no clue. They may think they have a clue, but they actually have no clue. They will make mistakes left, right, and center. So uh, you take the only person you take fiqh from, take Maliki fiqh from a Maliki, take Hanafi fiqh from a Hanafi scholar, from Hanbali fiqh from a Hanbali scholar, take Shafi fiqh from a Shafi'i scholar, not from a website, not from somebody who's talking in general as I'm talking right now. I've been in classes, I've read books by gigantic scholars, scholars that are like the mountains, been with these scholars who are amazing. But because people are talking in passing, they'll mention things not particularly accurate. And even in a book, they might write something because that's not their madhab. They mention it in a with a slight level of inaccuracy that actually applies to you, and then you apply it in the wrong way. So that's why we study fiqh in a fiqh class, right? Right? You have to study fiqh in a fiqh class. You don't. There's no such thing as the fiqh of fasting. There's the Maliki fiqh of fasting, or the Shafi'i fiqh of fasting, or the Hanbali fiqh of fasting, or this or that. If you just study the comparative fiqh of fasting, you'll end up not knowing anything, right? Like my brother's here, for example, he is a consultant doctor, right? He's supposed to know what he's doing, right? If he's not, then he's just a jack of all trades, a master of none. But he's supposed to be a master of his, that's his thing. So I'm going to go to him. I'm like, this is the problem. Do we do this? Do we do this? He's actually the pro, as opposed to somebody who's just, yeah, I read about medicine. I watched ER. I don't know if it still exists. And I think it's cool. I've seen a bunch of resuscitations in my life. Like that's fantastic, but you're not a doctor, right? So specialization is a societal and civilizational necessity and reality. And somebody who doesn't appreciate it is ignorant of many things. عن معاذ بن زهرة رضي الله عنه قال إن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان إذا أفطر قال اللهم لك صمت وعلى رزقك أفطرت رواه أبو داود. So there's another dua, and again the same thing. Connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at that point is crucial because it's this point where you could turn away. You could change your heart towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and turn back to the dunya, and you say, no, I'm turning to Allah, that's why I'm making this dua. So, oh Allah, for your sake alone I have fasted, and for with your sustenance alone have I broken my fast. Right? Where's the word alone? It's from the taqdeem and the ta'khir, the fact that the laka sumtu as opposed to sumtu laka. Right? I fasted for you and for other people. For you I fasted, i.e., and nobody else. Right? So for you, for your sake alone, like iyyaka na'budu means we worship, but it means you alone we worship. Right? For your sake alone, I have fasted, and with your sustenance alone, I have broken it. And this is narrated by Abu Dawood, and again, inshallah, I'll share the video about this, and it is important. It's a technical issue, but it is important, inshallah, to understand. And we'll stop there. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.